U.S. immigration. Can Donald Trump give you a green? Hey guys, before you file for your spouse, hello, friends. We're going to be talking tonight in this live session about denaturalization. Who is at risk for denaturalization and what is the process? I'm going to break it down for you because I've been getting a lot of questions about denaturalization. So many people are afraid of what's being discussed with immigration, particularly on the denaturalization side. So pull up a chair, sit down, listen, join in, text others, tell them to join tonight's live session. This is an important one. You're going to learn a lot of good things, and I'll answer some of your questions towards the end of this session. But come on in and say hello and type in freedom now, freedom now, freedom now. I'm Latoya McBean Pompey, an immigration lawyer in New York, working with clients, with you, some of you, and folks nationwide at McBean Law, where we believe that freedom is now and you need to be free here in the United States to be your best. Okay, so now we're facing a big change with immigration. Big changes are coming in January. Some changes will be swift. Some changes will happen on day one, week one. The first 100 days, we're going to see a lot of different things happen in Washington across all parts of our government. I mean, we're looking at a complete revamp, okay, of government, federal government. So there will be a lot to talk about. But on the immigration side, the big issue that is on a lot of your minds tonight certainly is denaturalization. Why? Well, because the Trump administration, in particular, his architect around immigration policies, Stephen Miller, had tweeted a year ago a little tweet that had gotten so much attention and still gets a lot of attention today. And that tweet says, yes, we started a new denaturalization project under Trump. In 2025, expect it to be turbocharged. Turbocharged. And that's the word that has a lot of people quite concerned. Stephen Miller is correct in that they did ramp things up a little bit, okay, with denaturalization during the first Trump term, but they didn't get very far. But now they are looking forward to using their experiences to really do something a little bit more significant than what they were able to accomplish before. But I'm going to tell you in this live session what the foregrounds are for bringing a denaturalization charge against people, and whether it involves you who might have gotten your naturalization or citizenship based on fraud or a mistake that the government made, or whether you misrepresented on your application for a green card, and are you at risk of being denaturalized? Well, what about your children who got their citizenship through you? What about them? Are they at risk? What about your spouse who became a citizen early because of you? We're going to talk about those issues in this session, okay? So let's get started. Denaturalization, guys, applies primarily to individuals, obviously, who are naturalized through an application process. But with naturalization occurs through an application process with the government and a test and then an oath, and then you become a U.S. citizen. Now, let's say that an individual got their citizenship by fraud or misrepresentation, and the government later discovers this. Well, in most cases, the government doesn't take any action whatsoever against those types of cases. The government does know about some of the mistakes that have been made over the years with certain individuals, but they make the decision not to proceed with anything serious like even revoking a green card. Many times they don't even revoke a green card. And then with naturalization, many times they don't do anything with it. They just let it go. And they allow individuals to live their life in the US as citizens. But, historically speaking, the government rallied their resources around denaturalizing war criminals, people who came to the United States after committing war crimes in their home country, and they changed their names. They come to the United States under some alias, and then lo and behold, they become a U.S. citizen. Well, traditionally, the government went after those people like those. And, on average, it was like 11 people a year, right? 11 people a year would be denaturalized out of the millions of applications and folks that the government sees each year for a green card and naturalization. So 11, that's not very much, right? But let me just share with you some procedures here. So denaturalization, guys, is litigation. It starts with a federal complaint that is filed against you, an individual, in the district court where you're located. Literally a complaint litigation process, and it's handled by the Civil Division of Office of Immigration Litigation under the Department of Justice. They handle, and you'll see here in the overview of the scope of their authority, they file denaturalization complaints and other original actions. They handle many different types of cases for the government, but specifically denaturalization complaints. And once that complaint is filed in federal district court, you, through your lawyer, will have to go through that litigation process. Now, there are two ways that denaturalization can occur. From the litigation standpoint, it could either be a civil process or it could be a criminal process. If it's a criminal process, obviously you're facing very serious criminal charges. In a civil matter, it's handled a little differently, and there's no statute of limitations that's attached to that, which means that, well, if you became a naturalized citizen maybe 15 years ago, well, they could still come after you if they have strong grounds, and we'll go into that momentarily. They could still come after you 15 years later on the civil side, but not on the criminal side because there's a 10-year statute of limitations. Now, the ACLU, I'm going to share with you this resource that the ACLU, along with another organization, put together some years ago after Trump, during the first Trump term, about denaturalization and how it actually works. And here are some numbers back then that they shared showing that on average, just a small number of folks were denaturalized each year. Between 1990 and 2017, the government was only averaging 11 denaturalization cases per year. And then under the Trump administration, DHS had already referred 95 cases for denaturalization since this January 2017 date. And then later on, there were about 1,600 additional citizens were recommended to DOJ, Department of Justice, for prosecution. And then in 2019, ICE sought through a budget process with Congress, they sought dollars, guys, to begin reviewing files of 700,000 U.S. citizens. So 700,000 back then files, not all of these individuals were prosecuted, so to speak. No, but there was a budget request to begin a process to review 700,000 U.S. citizen files for denaturalization purposes. And you might be saying, well, yeah, that's a big number. It is a big number. What I don't know through the research that I did very quickly before tonight's session, I don't know how far they actually got with that budget request for the 700 that to review those files, but there are people who become naturalized, guys, who actually have a removal order, and they have an alias that allowed them to naturalize. And the government caught up with quite a number of them under the Obama years. That's how a lot of this started. Let me just share with you just this little timeline here that they have. It started with an operation under the Obama administration, Operation Janice, uh, to to investigate immigrants who were ordered deported and suspected of obtaining citizenship using other identities. So there, I don't know the numbers there. And then there were other people, obviously, who committed fraud to get the citizenship, other types of fraud. But let's talk about the grounds now. Why would they bring this charge of denaturalization against an individual? Well, the first ground that the government can argue is that the person illegally became naturalized. They illegally procured, let me just get in here. They illegally procured naturalization. And what this looks like, friends, is that they're they weren't really eligible for it. Maybe they didn't meet the residency requirement or the physical presence requirement, or the good moral character requirement, right? They got it illegally based on, one of those issues. Or maybe they concealed or willfully misrepresented a material fact during naturalization proceedings to obtain citizenship. They lied. It was by it was completely by fraud that they got it. Okay. That could be a reason that the government will lay out in a complaint wanting to strip someone of their naturalization. Or, by the way, with misrepresentation, it also includes omissions, failing to disclose certain things on the naturalization application, or you lied under oath during your interview with the government. All right, so it includes those issues. And then thirdly, and guys, let me know, I'm not really that focused at all really on the comments. Let me know if there's any problems with the audio or any technical issues, okay, as I go along. The third reason why the government would bring denaturalization proceedings against someone is maybe they became a member of or affiliated with a group that they're not supposed to, right? Like party, or they became a member of a terrorist group. Well, that's a reason to denaturalize someone. And then lastly, and this, I know you'll see five here, but I'm going to cover the top four, and I'll talk about the last one momentarily. But the fourth one is if you obtained your citizenship through military service and you've been maybe dishonorably discharged from the military. That's the fourth reason. Procured citizenship through military service and has since been discharged under other than honorable conditions. Okay. Now, those are the charges that the government can possibly bring against someone. But there is this old letter. I'm not going to get into the details of it, but during a denaturalization proceeding, there, typically lawyers who are representing clients rely on an old letter that the Department of Justice drafted that provided some parameters around who should be denaturalized and what cases the government should just like kind of turn a blind eye to, right? Kind of look away. And part of what the letter says, guys, is that if there was some sort of error in your application, well, that's not a reason to just don't do it. Don't bring charges against an individual based on like errors and things like that during the application process. Also, fraud. If this person willfully committed fraud to get to be naturalized. Well, that's not a reason either, particularly if a lot of time has passed since they've been naturalized. They're great citizens, and you know, just leave them alone, right? If you could prove that, well, they're an outstanding citizen, many years have passed, yet they had committed fraud to become naturalized, well, just leave them alone. We're not going to spend all of these resources to go after such an individual. Okay. Um, and and so there's a lot of nuances, additional nuances, I should say, that goes into this litigation process when defending someone in denaturalization proceedings that I won't get into here. But certainly, if there is a complaint that is filed against you for denaturalization, you certainly will need to lawyer up. Now, denaturalization starts typically with USCIS making the recommendation. The recommendation normally starts with them, and then the office that litigation immigration litigation office that we looked at earlier, they will make the decision whether they're going to take this to the next level and investigate, which can take years. Investigation around things like this, it's very slow. It is not very fast. Okay. There are not a ton of attorneys in that office handling stuff like this. They will hire more attorneys, of course. They're going to beef things up, uh, beef it up, really, to be able to litigate these cases. But they first have to investigate, and that takes a lot of time. So, guys, that's the process with denaturalization. And let's see, I want to share with you some additional numbers about how the Trump administration performed during the first term with denaturalization. Again, knowing that they're going to do better. They're going to do better this time around, as I've said. So they will be ramping it up, but it will still require a slow investigation period and recruitment and all of that. And if you have a good lawyer, you can make it through. But I will tell you this, the government, when they do these denaturalization cases, they are incredibly successful with the cases. They say 95% of the time they win, okay, with respect to denaturalizing an individual. And that's high. Why? Because they've spent a long time investigating things to make sure that they got it right, because it's very expensive to do this type of process. So they're not going to do it for the common person who committed fraud. Now, let me share with you additional numbers here. And this comes from AILA, the American Immigration Lawyers Association, about denaturalization cases during the Trump years, and, like what things actually looked like back then. So they say that the Department of Justice in 2020 had reported that they won 95% of the time, as I've said already. And of the 220, this is in, let's see, of the 228 denaturalization cases that the department had filed since 2008, about 40% of them were filed since 2017, since Trump became president. According to official department numbers, over the last 3 years, denaturalization case referrals to the department have increased 600%. So, of course, that 600% increase during that period of time was based on the Trump administration's efforts to refer more people to denaturalization. Then it talks about in 2019, there was a budget request that asked for $200 million to investigate 887 additional leads. The agency expected to get into American citizens who may be vulnerable to denaturalization and to review another 700,000 immigrant files. So those are some of the numbers from those days. I'm bringing those numbers to you just to kind of give you some context into, like what happened during the first term. this term, I'm expecting it to be a lot more. Okay. One of the big takeaways I want you guys to walk away from with tonight, I should say, is that if you're a green card holder, seek naturalization if you're eligible for it, because that's the only way to truly free yourself from immigration. If you are already a naturalized citizen and you're worried about being denaturalized because of fraud, misrepresentation, or you got your naturalization based on the fact that you weren't even eligible, you didn't meet the residency requirement, the physical presence requirement, or even good moral character requirement. Those are some of the grounds that the government can lay out in a complaint to denaturalize an individual. But just know that there are ways that an attorney can make certain arguments about the fact that fraud, misrepresentation, are generally not the culture of the department to denaturalize someone, particularly if it's been many years since you've been a naturalized citizen, and also you have been a really good citizen all these years. There are ways to argue those kinds of things, but just know that denaturalization, the government is usually very successful with those cases because they take the time to fully investigate them. They don't do a lot of them. Again, on average, before Trump, they were doing 11. And then during his first term, they ramped it up. They did ramp it up a little bit, but it wasn't like blowout numbers, right? And they are going to ramp it up again. And so expect more litigation along those lines, but it won't be happening like that swiftly, I don't think. Um, but we'll just have to see. Guys, I'm gonna jump off now. I'm gonna jump off. Thank you so much for being with me tonight. I hope you found this live session helpful. Be sure to share this video with other people because you never know who is going to need this information. Thanks so much, guys. I hope it was great for you as well. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.